Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be doing my second hurricane season forecast, so it's going to be a full update. Sorry for it being late. It was supposed to be released around May 2nd actually, or May 4th. But the ECMWF seasonal is always late to come out, so this was delayed until today. But yeah, without further ado, let's get started. So we're going to start with the ECMWF models. And we're going to start with looking at the monthly sea surface temperatures. Also, by the way, we are around a plus 1.8 on El Nino Southern Oscillation. So we are at a neutral now, and we are soon going to go into the negatives. So clearly the Pacific is cooling down, the Atlantic is going to warm up. But in June, obviously, very above average sea surface temperatures across everywhere. Sorry, I'm sick. But June, mainly the Caribbean into the Gulf we see, and that really is the case for the whole season. So definitely a lot of fuel for these storms. And if we look at the precipitation, we do see into June very above average precipitation for much of the Caribbean and eastern and central main development region, and into the Gulf as well for July. Same for August. Pretty much everywhere has above average precipitation, especially the Gulf and Caribbean. And then September, it kind of calms down, but we see in October a lot for the Caribbean there. But September and October, not September, October and November are a different pattern, so we're not really going to focus on that. And then peak season anyways, August, September. We could see an earlier peak late August this year, but then again, it's still only around a 10-day difference. Sorry. Anyway, so moving on, we're going to go to the can sips. Oh, wait, nope. One more thing I want to show you guys is the pressure. So we see strong Bermuda high, pretty much the same. September, it's a bit weaker on the ECMWF seasonal, so that could favor more eastern Florida systems up the East Coast. But I'm expecting a peak in August, and July could be very bad too. We could even see much higher July activity, a lot of stuff going into the Gulf, and still into Florida too. Not as much East Coast action though. Now we're going to go to can sips. We do see pretty much also a very strong Bermuda high. It's actually stronger on the can sips, I think, especially August and July. A lot of systems going into the Gulf. September favors more eastern systems, but still the Bermuda high is going to be extending more south. So a lot of systems are still going to go way more west. It doesn't really matter if it's not going as west. It's going to go more south. So sea surface temperatures extremely above average, especially for the Caribbean. That stays the same. And for precipitation, we see how June, as the season starts, extremely above average precipitation for the whole main development region, the Caribbean, and into parts of the Gulf for June and July, as we see near the Florida Panhandle and Big Bend, and Alabama and Mississippi coasts into eastern Louisiana. So that sticks. And then August, very above average precipitation for Cuba into the Bahamas, the main development region. And September, October, different pattern starts. But September is going to be pretty much the same as August. So yeah. Anyway, next we're gonna look at the what people are forecasting. So here we go. So for named storms, what we're going to be seeing is pretty much everybody saying above average. So ECMWF is predicting maybe like 17, 18 to 27 named storms. Storm Geo around 23. And 268 WX is around 18 to 34, it kind of looks like. It's hard to tell. The weather 2020 is much lower, so we're not really going to focus on that. It's an outlier. And then, yeah, pretty much above average for everybody. Penn State is going, like we've said, 29 to 35, I think it was. That probably is wrong. No, it was 27 to 39. So, yeah, pretty much everybody is having above average. In terms of hurricanes, we're seeing up to 16 hurricanes by the ECMWF. 268 WX up to 16, and Weather Bell 13 to 16, so very above average hurricanes. And in terms of major hurricanes, not as much people are forecasting this, but we 268 WX up to 10 major hurricanes. That's crazy. Don't think that's going to happen, but then 6 major hurricanes, pretty much across the board, it's going to be very bad. And in terms of ACE, we're seeing up to 368 by the ECMWF, 268WX, up to 278 for CSU. I'm on the very low end. You guys are going to realize that. You're going to see my ACE forecast in a bit, but I'm around the mid to lower end, according to some of these big forecasts. But yeah, it's going to be very bad. In terms of the ECMWF, we're not going to look at precipitation or temperature because I already showed you the ECMWF seasonal for temperature, pressure, and precipitation. So yeah, I'm not going to show you anything on that. But in terms of what we can actually see, sorry guys, I got to find it. The ECMWF is forecasting up to 2.0. That means up to 2 times the amount of ACE. So average is like 115, so we can see up to 230, they're saying. And so yeah, that's going to be very bad. Obviously, an error of 0.6, so we can see up to 2.6 times the amount of ACE, and obviously 1 is the average. And if we go to the amount of hurricanes, we can see ECMWF saying 13 hurricanes, 3.4 error, so potentially they're saying up to 16 hurricanes, and average is 7.4 hurricanes. And in terms of tropical storms, they were saying a staggering 22.8 hurricanes, so basically named storms. So up to 23 named storms, saying error 4.4, that means we could see up to 27, 28 named storms, they're saying. So that's going to be very bad. And by the way, this video might be shorter because there's not as much to show you. It's just like quick going through the new ECMWF stuff, and I'm explaining it a bit, but obviously getting right to the point because this video's late. But yeah, obviously we've covered most of the stuff in earlier videos. Anyway, for the standardized density long-range forecast, it is very rare for ECMWF to show anything, so the fact that we're having something here is crazy. Tropical storm standardized density, entire Gulf of Mexico, Alabama, Mississippi coast, the Florida Panhandle, the Florida Big Bend, the Florida Peninsula, southern Florida, off the coast of the Carolinas. I don't really expect much there, but still, into the Caribbean, the Yucatan. So this shows that we could be having systems coming out of the MDR Caribbean, going through Cuba maybe, or not, through the Bahamas, and then we could have systems going through Florida and the Florida Peninsula, southern Florida, which is going to be bad, up the Florida, the East Coast through Florida. I expect maybe some Irma tracks this year. I don't really expect systems to go up as much up the East Coast, but we could see some Carolina stuff. But we have systems going through the Florida Peninsula, Florida East Coast, southern Florida, into the Florida Big Bend or Panhandle, the Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana coasts. Now, obviously, this changes a lot, so don't trust it too much. It's bound to change a lot. But previous run, but we combine this with April, which had the Florida Panhandle, Big Bend, and Louisiana and Texas. So a little more east this run, but it's not really a trend. But just showing that it's rare to see something. So the Gulf of Mexico and Florida, very high risk for tropical storms. And here we do see it's pretty much the same thing into Florida and then into the Gulf. So that means we could have systems going through the Florida Peninsula, southern Florida, and then back into Florida or Louisiana, Alabama. So Irma, which affected the whole state, maybe a Dorian. What Dorian was supposed to do was it was supposed to hit the east coast of Florida, then go through, it was supposed to hit southern Florida, and then go hit the Panhandle or Big Bend, kind of like what Irma did. So a very big system, really. Sorry I'm scrolling a lot. I'm just explaining it to you, making sure I have everything. We're just getting really to the point here. But yeah, really a very concerning thing what we're going to be seeing. And really, if we look at the Nino plumes, we see down to -2 or -1.5. So a strong La Nina, the ECMWF is showing, which is going to cause very warm temperatures and that's going to be very bad. So, so yeah, this is everything for tropical cyclones, and we've covered what we needed to cover. So now we're going to go into my final forecast, what y'all looking at. So because I was looking at the models, I just decided to put the image on here. We're expecting a very up. My forecast, I've increased it a lot. 23 to 30 named storms, 11 to 14 hurricanes, 5 to 8 major hurricanes. Hyperactive season, very likely. I think like a 90% chance of an above average season. And varying but very low chances for an average and below average season. But obviously, we're very unlikely to see a below average season. But yeah, so an average, I would say, so probably maybe like 26, 27 named storms, I'm saying, the average, and then with like 12 to 13 hurricanes, and then maybe like 6 major hurricanes. And my average for ACE is 220, so very above average, pretty much the double. So, non-American landfall hotspots, the Yucatan Peninsula, have been favored by analogs. There's no new analogs to show, so if you want to see my analogs, please go to my last hurricane season intermediate update for the newest analogs. And if you want to see other previous analogs that I'm still using, please go to my previous full hurricane season forecast. But yeah, that's why I didn't show analogs. They're pretty much the same, and I want to get straight to the point, and we've showed a lot of hotspot stuff. But if you want to see those, please go to my previous videos. Anyway, Yucatan Peninsula been very favored by the models, ECMWF, and analogs. So is Cuba, Haiti, the Dominican Republic, Jamaica, and the Bahamas. The Bahamas not as much, but it's still third place. It's still notable. Bermuda not as much. I don't really see as much systems are going to go out to sea this year. American landfall hotspots. Number 1 is going to be the Florida Panhandle / to the northern Florida Big Bend, so the northern part of the Florida Big Bend, the Alabama / Mississippi coast, and Southeast Florida. So for the number 1 hotspots, these areas are going to be. And for the Florida Panhandle / northern Big Bend, that's Cedar Key, north to Pensacola, which is obviously the end of the Florida Panhandle, and Cedar Key is like the northern Florida Big Bend. Mobile to Gulfport, those are really the only major cities, but that's really covering the entire Alabama and Mississippi coast, which extends onto the Pensacola because they're right next to each other. So yeah, I'm just being more specific here, but really it's Cedar Key all the way to Gulfport, obviously, because those two areas are connected. And then Palm Beach, and then Palm Bay, south to just northeast of the Keys. That's where I think southeast Florida is going to be. It's increased a lot. We could definitely see hurricanes going through there, and then they could really affect the whole entire state. But then obviously going along with the Florida Panhandle and the northern Big Bend, and then on top of the Alabama / Mississippi coasts. Rest of the Florida East Coast is going to be Palm Beach or the Palm Coast, so that's the rest of the Florida East Coast. Obviously, the rest of the Florida East Coast is never as big of a risk as southeast Florida, and yeah, that's why they're not at number 1, because it's harder to hit there. And the west, and by the way, why I removed the southwest coast of Florida, it's just that it's kind of been less favored recently. And if the systems that have been showed are relatively weak, and they really more go towards the southeast Florida coast or into the Panhandle / Big Bend area, that's why I have removed them. But I guess the southwest Florida coast could go along with the rest of the Florida East Coast. So Palm Beach is the Palm Coast, which is just south of Jacksonville, and the Louisiana Central Texas, that's New Orleans, just south of Galveston. Sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. The Carolinas, that's Horry County around Myrtle Beach to the Outer Banks. So not as big of a risk as usual. It's still an above average risk, but not as much as like these other areas. Sorry I'm focusing on the landfall hotspot so much, but I know that's what y'all care about the most, and obviously I do too, because that's what we like to focus on. So I guess the southwest coast of Florida, maybe like Homestead, could be added on to number 2 hotspots. But obviously for Florida, the highest risk is going to be the Florida Panhandle / northern Big Bend and the southeast Florida. That's really always the case for Florida, but especially this year, especially in recent trends. That is what I think. But yeah, I'm going to have another video probably coming out later about a potential upcoming system. My final preseason hurricane season forecast coming May 28th, 2024. Sorry that I'm sick. If you have any questions, please let me know. And see you guys later or in the next video. And good night, guys. Or see you in the next video. Bye.